Okay, and what we have is, we just, in the previous Parsha, right, Kathy, Parsha is our Torah, weekly Torah reading. So we went through the building, or the instructions for the building of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was a tabernacle, and all the different vessels that were placed inside there. Just take a look for a moment, because this will apply to us. On page 447 in the art scroll, so we have a rendition of the Aron, of the ark, right, which was gold, wood, gold box, 3 boxes, one inside the other. On top, inside were the tablets from Mount Sinai. On top is the kaporet, which is the cover, and it had these angel-like figures on top of it. On the very next page, on 449, you have a rendition of the shulchan, of the table. On 451, you have a rendition of the menorah. Right? These are all the different vessels that were there in the Mishkan. And we also have the altar, page 461. These are all the different vessels that were there. Parsha Tetzaveh is now the command for the garments, the special garments that the Cohanim, that the priests would wear when they would be performing the service in the temple, the divine service in the temple. And there were 4 garments that were worn by a regular Kohen. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Doe. And the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, had 8 different garments that he would wear. And these were very, very illustrious garments that were worn. Where does the concept of clothing come from? You know, it's very interesting when we anthropologists go out to the most far-flung tribes, right, out in the rainforests, right? Human beings wear some, even in the hottest of climates, human beings wear some garments. Animals don't. Even the smartest of animals don't fashion clothing for themselves. Human beings, besides protecting ourselves from the elements, you know, from the brutal California winter that we're all sitting here shivering. You know, we watch the news and we see it's -2 here and there's this ice storm over there, and we say, we too are suffering. It's in the 50s, right? But, right, human beings wear garments. Where does this come from? Right? So it comes, Omar, like Omar is saying, from Bereshit. Right? For the Torah tells us about the Garden of Eden episode that we're told that they were naked, velo yitboshashu, and they were not at all ashamed. They ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and it says there, actually the wording is so interesting. They ate from the Eitz Hadat on page 1617, and their eyes were opened up. V'yedu ke'erumim hein. Right? And they knew that they were naked. Until that point, they had no awareness that they were naked. Now that they ate from the Eitz Hadat, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, now they knew that they were naked. I once heard a very beautiful explanation on that. What's the connection between eating from this tree of knowledge and of good and evil? Right? It's always important to say of good and evil, right? Because what's wrong with knowledge? No, we're talking about an intimate internalization of good and evil that we all struggle with. We have these internal voices of what should I do, what shouldn't I do, right? And not only that, but we self-identify more, right? You know, I really want to have my fifth Entenmann's donut, right? And then the other voice says, but you really shouldn't, right? Who's I and who's you? Who are we really identifying with? I really want to have my fifth donut. But then the voice says, but you shouldn't. It's almost like I'm identifying fully with my desires. And it's the outside voice that says, but you should not. Right? So it was this mixture of good and evil that became so internalized that it's almost, the way a virus works. A virus takes over a cell and makes it think that it's a virus. It starts to produce viruses. That's what happened over here, that we self-identify with that. So a very beautiful explanation that I heard is that until they ate from the Eitz Hadat, so then they understood, who am I, what am I? I am a soul. I am a holy being. How does a soul exist and function in this material physical world? It needs to have a body. That's how it gets around. But the way that it was presented, right? Has anybody here gone horseback riding? Okay, what was the horse wearing? A saddle. That sounds kind of raunchy, right? You weren't ashamed to be riding on a horse with just a saddle? No. Why not? Because you were riding on a horse in order to get around. Right? The horse wasn't a reflection on you. That was a mode of transportation, or actually a mode of recreation, probably more for us than transportation. That's all it is. So the fact that it is unclothed doesn't reflect on me and cause me any shame. Initially, before they ate from the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra, so they understood, who am I? I am a soul. But how do I get around in this physical world? Oh, I need a horse. What's the horse, so to speak? My body. The fact that the body was naked was not a reflection, would not be shame-causing to the person. Once they ate from the Eitz Hadat Tov Ra, now there was a blurring of the lines of who am I? What am I? Am I a soul? Or I'm the body? This is who I am. This is what I am. All of a sudden, this is me. It's not the horse that's naked. All of a sudden, the emperor has no clothes. All of a sudden, it's me that's naked. So what happened? They felt shame. That's what happened over there. So and human beings in the most far-flung tribes where they have not been in contact with the industrialized world, nevertheless, they wear garments to cover their sexual organs. That is what human beings do. And we say that goes all the way back to this episode in the Garden of Eden. Now, what's fascinating is in Lashon HaKodesh, in the holy language of Hebrew, the words that we have tell us much history and reveal to us many, many aspects. What are the terms that we use for garment in Hebrew? Beged. Beged is garment in Hebrew. Right? Bet Gimel Daled. What else is that the shoresh, the root for? Betrayal. Begida is a rebellion. It is a betrayal. Beged, garment. Bagad, betrayal, rebel. What is the connection between a garment and a rebellion?
The garment ended up as a kind of collateral result or
we had a beged because we were bagad, right? We needed a garment because we had rebelled against the instructions, the second mitzvah that had been given to us. The first mitzvah that was given to us was, even before, to eat. To eat from the trees of the garden, right? We always think, the first thing was, don't eat from that tree. No, the first command was, eat. Right? Essen mein Kind, my grandmother used to say, eat, my child, eat. Right? Eat from all the trees of the garden, except for that one tree not to. So beged comes from the root begida, rebellion. Okay. Other words for garment is a levush. Levush, mash'ata lovesh, that which you wear. Lavash is to wear, right? The Gemara says levush comes from lo bosh. What's bosh or busha? Shame, embarrassment, right? So a levush is that which removes, takes away the shame, the name, the shame, right? That's what the garment does. Me'il is, in modern Hebrew, it's a coat. Mem ayin yud lamed. It's a coat, right? And one of the garments, this actually long tunic that the Kohen Gadol would wear, was called a me'il. Me'ilah in the Torah has another meaning. Me'ilah is if I utilize a consecrated item for non-consecrated use, if I misappropriate, that is called me'ilah. Misappropriation is going past the boundary of how something is supposed to be used and using something for your own personal usage when it was not meant for your own personal usage. So as a result of this, we have all of the garments, and we were sent out from Gan Eden, sent out from the Garden of Eden.
Would me'ilah include like non-permitted categories, like a Levi eating a Kohen food? Or?
Me'ilah is only something which is consecrated. So a Kohen food could mean truma. There we're not, right? It could also mean hektish, right? Truma is what's tithe. Hektish is consecrated items. Only by the consecrated items do we have this concept of me'ilah. Okay, so the first sin certainly was clothing related. What was the second sin that we have in the Torah? Cain and Hevel. Cain and Abel. Right? Cain killed Hevel. We have categories of mitzvot that are called chukim. A chok is, we discussed this last night, I think, a chok is a mitzvah that we don't know, the Torah did not share the reason behind it. Okay, and we explained before, in general, if I understand the reason behind every mitzvah, then we fall into the danger of serving myself, serving my intellect, serving what resonates with me, as opposed to serving Hashem. And therefore, specifically, there were mitzvot that the reason was not given to us in order for us to make sure that we are serving Hashem. When we talk about the classic mitzvot that are in the category of a chok, so we mentioned para aduma, the red heifer, which was a whole process of purifying someone who became ritually impure. Another classic example of a mitzvah that is a chok is shatnez. Good. What is shatnez? I mentioned this past Shabbos when I spoke. Shatnez is the mixing of wool and linen. Right? Garments that have a mixture of wool and linen, right, we are not allowed to wear. And there are, in all the, hopefully we'll get one here in Irvine, hopefully even this summer, but people who test for shatnez. There's a shatnez, and if you look, all my suits will have a little label on the inside, from the shatnez laboratory, right? And you bring, I bring suits, right, new suits, they're woolen suits, even if it says 100% wool, nevertheless, in the stitching, in the different padding that goes into a suit, right, men's and women's suits. Right? If it's a wool suit, then we check it for shatnez. Because you can't have wool and linen mixed together. Okay? It's a chok. Why? I don't know. Right? God said not to. However, it does have a certain echo of an event. Of what event is that? Cain and Hevel. Cain and Abel. Because Cain was the worker of the ground. Right? And what was Hevel? The shepherd. Not a hunter, the shepherd. Okay? Now, either the garments come from the wool, which comes from the animals, Hevel's domain, or it comes from the flax, right, which grows from the ground, which was Cain's domain. But we don't mix the two. Exactly, again, it's a chok. Why, what, how? But nevertheless, we do hear this reverberation of this fratricide. Is it fratricide? Is that the right term? The fratricide of Cain and Hevel reflecting itself once again in our garments. What other mitzvah do we have when it comes to garments?
Tzitzit.
Tzitzit. Right? We have the mitzvah of tzitzit, that if a man, it's a time-bound positive mitzvah, so it applies to men, and women are exempt from it. Women do not need this mitzvah. But if a man is wearing a four-cornered garment, then there need to be these strings, these tzitzit, that are tied on to the corners of that garment. And nowadays, we don't really have in our usual wardrobe four-cornered garments. So we specifically make a four-cornered garment so we could fulfill this mitzvah of tzitzit. And when davening, a man will put on a talit, right? Otherwise, a man would wears the talit katan, it's called, in order to fulfill this mitzvah. And what are the tzitzit meant to do? To remind us of all the commandments. The tzitzit remind us of all the commandments. So garments are almost meant to try to bring us back to where we were before all of these sins. And a very beautiful explanation that I heard, that I learned as to how do the mitzvot remind us, how do the tzitzit remind us of all the mitzvot. So Rashi has a whole explanation utilizing gematria, the numerical value, but a very, very nice explanation that I appreciated very much. Strings coming out of a garment. They portray that there is unfinished business, right? The garment has not yet been completed. Look, there are all these loose, right? And we have the expression also. You have to take care of all the loose ends, right? The loose strings, the loose ends, right? So when we look at the world as being a garment of God, so to speak, because a garment both covers and reveals. The garment covers, it obscures, but at the same time, it lets us know the general parameters of what is underneath that garment. So too, the world is considered to be a garment of Hashem. It hides Hashem, but at the same time, it reveals to us what is truly there. Right? We could look outside and say, oh, a beautiful tree, right? Mother Nature at its best, or we could look into the miraculous systems of this world. The trees are giving off through the photosynthesis, are giving off oxygen. I mean, it's just incredible how everything works so seamlessly together, and we could see God. But there are loose ends in this world, so to speak. There's unfinished business that God leaves, that God left in this world for us to affix, for us to get in there, l'takein olam v'malchut shakai, to correct this world in this kingdom of Hashem. And therefore it is through the mitzvot, both those between man and man, and between mankind and mankind and God, that we can tie these loose ends. So the tzitzit are meant to remind us of all of the mitzvot, to try to get back to where we were. So the Kohen, in this week's Parsha, we're going to hear about all the different garments that the Cohanim would wear. And we have, on page 467, we have the ephod, which is sort of like an apron of sorts, with these shoulder straps that came up in the front, right, and a wraparound in the front. There's the me'il we mentioned before, the robe. There's the ketonet, which is a tunic, right? And on page 469, we have what's called the Choshen HaMishpat, the Choshen breastplate that was placed on the ephod, right? And you see, it's a little hard to see in the picture there. See a little better over here, right? There were 3 rows of 4 stones. There were 12 different, very expensive stones that were there, each one representing one of the tribes, and their names were written on that. And this was a just short of prophecy method called the Urim V'Tumim, that questions could be posed and different letters would illuminate on this breastplate, and that would give a message, a divine message, right? When we were about to start the conquest of the land of Israel, the question was posed, which tribe should lead? And the letters Yud, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Hey, Yud, Ayin, Lamed, Hey, Yehuda, Ya'aleh was what it was illuminated, but it wasn't done in order. And it took the almost nevuah prophecy of this Kohen Gadol, of the high priest, to understand, to take those mix of letters and to unscramble them into the proper understanding. When Hannah, who was so broken that she didn't have a child, when she went and she was crying and praying by the Beit HaMikdash, or by the Mishkan actually, where the tabernacle was set up in Shiloh, when Eli was the high priest, was the Kohen Gadol, and lots of the laws of prayer we learn out from the way Chana davened. Her lips were moving, her voice wasn't heard. When we say the Amidah, we have to be saying the words, but no one else should be able to hear it. Eli thought that she was a shikura, that she was drunk. That's what Eli thought. And she said, Lo Adoni, I forget the exact wording, but she said, you're not a master over this. Right? You saw the letters Shin, Kaf, Resh, Hey, and you thought it spelled Shikura, drunk. No, it's Keshera, kosher, holy, proper. Right? So that was this Choshen HaMishpat. Now, the garments of the Kohen, in a certain way, were meant to correct all of these sins. What do we find? We find an exception when we're looking at the different garments of the Kohen and the materials that was made. Just one second. When we are discussing the belt, just one second, that was made of shatnez. That had wool and linen together. Why would the garments of the Kohen of all people, serving in the Beit HaMikdash or in the Mishkan, in the temple, in the tabernacle, why would his garments have shatnez? And this is a classic example of an aseh overcoming dochel lo ta'aseh. Even though the Torah says not to do something, the Torah says in this specific situation to do it. The to-do overrides the don't. So why would there be shatnez?
Reconciliation, because the Kohen's job is atonement. And
So the Mishkan, this heavenly place on earth, this God's bayit, so to speak, God's abode on earth, is a place where we elevate beyond our sins, beyond the morass that we descended into as a result of our sins. And that's a place to rise up above. Now, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, he had gold in many of his garments. But when he would enter the Holy of Holies, now interestingly, again, we saw the picture earlier. What was in the Holy of Holies? What was the only vessel that was in the Holy of Holies? The ark. And what was on that ark? Those angel-like figures who were there without any garments. So when we enter into that, so this lack of garments is almost like this return to that perfection, that guilt-free, that shame-free, that absolute focus on who we are, what we are about, physicality, spirituality, that it is a return to that place. And that's why the Kohen Gadol, when he enters the Holy of Holies, he's not wearing his 8 garments which contain gold, but rather he's wearing just the white garments. And he's also not wearing any of that shatnez, right? Why not gold? What is gold reminiscent of?
Golden calf.
The golden calf. Ein kategor na'aseh sanegor. We don't want to walk into the Holy of Holies with something, right, in order to bring about this cleansing, this healing. We're not going to walk in there with, we're not going to stroll in there, right, wearing our bling, wearing the gold that reminds us of, a reminiscence of that sin that pushed us so far away.
You just made me have a collateral thought, though, that I get that. You don't want Hashem to be, but to have that presence of mind, it might have been, even though Hashem says no, so we know that, to remind you of that, to not do it again. Maybe it would be, to have one period when you go in with the gold to show, oh my gosh, we did this.
We're wearing we never go into the holy, we wear the gold all year round.
It just was a collateral thought.
Yeah. If a married person had an affair, right, and was given something, and let's take Bill Clinton and the tie. You guys remember that? Bill Clinton and the tie that Monica Lewinsky gave him, right? So when he has his, whatever it is, 50th anniversary, night dinner out with Hillary, right? That would not be a good tie to wear. Okay? That would not be a good tie to wear. Okay? That's wearing the golden garments into the Holy of Holies. Okay? I think that's a pretty good example. If I must say so myself. Yes, though.
Also, it's very interesting. They say when the right way to go into the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol enters with only his soul.
Okay.
He wants to be completely free of
Okay.
all material.
Okay. So garments play a very, very pivotal role in this sojourn of mankind, of where we were, where we descended to, and where we hope to return to. Right? And therefore, it's not surprising that here we have all of these details about the garments of the Kohen Gadol, right? And there also is an aspect that we live in a physical world, and in order for us to feel, the previous Parsha, there was all this gold in the tabernacle. Why do we need all this? Why does God need all of this gold? And the answer, of course, is that God doesn't need all of it. God doesn't need any of it. But we need, in order for us to feel reverence, to feel in awe, so we can't just walk into a shack. We have to walk into something that is overwhelming in its glory, in its beauty, in its reverence. And therefore the Cohanim also, they need to be wearing these garments that when people would come, that they would feel where they were. Actually, the belt was a very long belt. I think it was 32 amot. It was about 60 feet long, right? Which means you wrap this belt around and around and around and around and around until finally, right, it's sticking out, right? Your arms are constantly knocking up against it, right? Why would we want to have a belt that is so awkward that your arms keep knocking against it? Constant reminder of where you are, of what you're wearing, of what you are doing. It happens perhaps way too often that we're in the middle of davening, in the middle of praying, And I once heard that this once happened to someone, that their mind wandered. I once heard that it once happened to someone that their mind wandered while they were... Can you imagine that? You're standing before God, speaking to God, and your mind wanders? Oh boy. Right? And that is, that's the challenge that we have. The challenge that we have is to stay focused on the task at hand. To stay focused on who we are, where we are, the opportunity that we have, and what we are doing. So in the Beit HaMikdash, they had all these things in order to help the Cohanim stay focused. Don't forget who you are, where you are, before whom you are serving. You are doing your avodah. So the garments work on keeping our focus, and garments in general are a reminder of where mankind had gotten to and where we need to return to. Yes, Jan?
So the focus, it calls to mind that even today in more secular situations, like if you wear a suit because you're in a business situation, it reminds you that you're going to focus on business, whereas a casual situation. Correct.
There is
trainers, and you're going to run.
Right.
Then it helps you to maybe say, I have these really good trainers. I'm going to really be able to warm up and then go really hard.
So I was meeting with someone actually last night. Right, a very fine young lady who's in the process of converting, and she was so taken by the concept of modest dress. She was so moved by that concept of dressing modestly. And dressing modestly goes both for men and for women, right? So as to not draw the focus to one's body, but allow the focus to be on the person. Right? It's very interesting, right? When in society today, American society today, right, is really unfair in many ways. When a man dresses up in a the expectation, let's say, when a man is getting dressed up formally, what is the expectation that he's wearing?
Tails.
Right, I know tails, but certainly a suit, tie, right? Right? What are the only parts of the physical body that are shown? The hands and the head. Right? What does the head represent? My thoughts, my plans, my abilities. That's what a head represents. Right? Hands represent, that which I do, that which I accomplish in the world. Right? And if a man, would come in, right, in short shorts and an undershirt, right, with his arms and shoulders revealed, right, that would be right, because we're not playing basketball today.
Yeah, I was going to say you probably think he was getting ready to go play soccer.
Yeah, we're not playing basketball today, right? Yet a woman in society today, the expectation when she's all dressed up is not all that much clothing. And there is almost a focus on the body. It's not a focus on the mind. It's not a focus on the accomplishments. It's a focus on the body. And this non-Jewish young lady was so taken by this concept that she started then and continues now to dress in a fully very modest manner. That was something. That was really, I was taken by that.
Rabbi?
Yes, Dov.
By the way, we're talking about Kohen Gadol, and we're having the yard side of the first one today. Is that right?
Is today Zayin Adar?
I think so.
Could be. Is today Zayin Adar? Let me check.
And it's strange if it is that we're doing this.
Interesting. I wouldn't say it was the first, or you want to call him the first Kohen Gadol? Okay, maybe we could. We don't normally refer to Aaron as the first Kohen Gadol.
No, Moshe.
It's an interesting
Yes,
point, though.
it is Zayin Adar. Good point, Dov. Okay, so let's go to another point that sort of dovetails with this. The Parsha begins on page 464. Leah bechavod ve'ata.
ואתה תצווה את בני ישראל ויקחו לך שמן זית זך כתית למאור להעלות נר חיים.
Good. And now just jump to the next paragraph. Ve'ata.
קרב אליך את אהרון אחיך ואת בניו איתו מתוך בני ישראל לכהנו יהיה אהרון נדב ואביהו אלעזר ואיתמר בני אהרון.
Beautiful. In English, please. Verse 20, the first verse, and then verse 1. Eileen, you want to take that? Eileen's making a wedding on Sunday, yet she came to class this morning, so we will give her the honor.
Welcome, Greg. Thank you. Now you shall command the children of Israel that they shall take for you pure olive oil, pressed for illumination, to kindle a lamp continually.
Good. Now 28, verse 1.
Now you bring near to yourself Aaron your brother and his sons with him, from among the children of Israel.
Good. Now who's you?
Moshe.
Now you. Who's you? Moshe. Right? And this is the only Parsha from the time that we read about Moshe's birth in the beginning of Exodus, the first Parsha of Shemot, throughout the entire Torah, where Moshe's name is not mentioned even once. And the commentators all give different glimpses as to why Moshe's name is not mentioned.
He's irrelevant because he's not going to go into Israel.
Well, this isn't Israel, this is the Mishkan. But this is going to be going on, right, all along in the Midbar, 40 years before we even get to Israel. So some explain, the Baal HaTurim explains that really Moshe was meant to be the Kohen Gadol. Moshe was meant to serve as the Kohen. However, when he kept refusing, when God was telling him to go to Paro, so then the verse said, and Moshe was refusing. Why was Moshe refusing? Because he didn't want to usurp the position of his brother Aaron. Aaron had been the leader of Am Yisrael, and he felt uneasy that he was pushing aside his brother Aaron and becoming the leader.
Just the opposite.
Just one second. So what happened was, Hashem said to him, it says Hashem got angry. And he said, and your brother Aaron is coming, will come out, your brother Aaron, Halevi, is coming out to see you. And don't worry, he will be happy. He will rejoice. So you're afraid of usurping Aaron's position. You don't have to worry. Aaron will be very, very happy for you. But he's referred to Aaron as the Levi. At that point, Aaron was the Levi. But because of this refusal of Moshe, Aaron became the Kohen, and Moshe was demoted to remain just a Levite and not become that elevated part of the tribe of Levi, which was a Kohen. So Moshe had been concerned about Aaron's position. That he didn't want to step on Aaron's toes. And Hashem said, you don't have to worry. Aaron will be happy for you. And now what happens over here? This is the Parsha that deals with Aaron's elevation to this post that should have been Moshe's. And once again, Moshe, so to speak, bows out. And Moshe gives this full glamour, full spotlight to Aaron. You know, there's a beautiful expression in Hebrew, the Gemara talks about, B'makom she'ein ish, sham tehei ish. Right? In a place where there is no one to step forward, there you step forward. But which means, right, if there's something that needs, if there's a need that needs to be filled, step forward, take care of it, fill that need. There's also a flip side. If there is someone filling the role, don't feel that you've got to be in the limelight. Hey, it's all about, right? Be fine stepping back and let someone else do that.